Okay, we're just going to look at a couple extra things that might do with your photos to adjust your values. We're going to talk about exposure levels, which you can adjust in your camera actually, and we'll take a little bit of time looking into our cameras to see how we can do that. But also the dodge and burn, which is a little bit more if you like to paint in Photoshop. This might be a little tool that you might use for little bits and pieces that these overall adjustments don't work with. So let's just take a quick look. I've already made this black and white, and we're going to look at your exposure. Okay, exposure is more something that has to do with what you do in the camera. It's what you're telling the camera, how much light to let in, how much how long are we going to expose this image for? How long are we going to try to capture this? So it's more something you would do with your camera and with your manual sort of settings, but you can kind of adjust that and play around with it here in Photoshop just to kind of get a feel. So there's not a whole lot happening in this box. It just basically, if you pull this all the way to the right, it's almost like it were too sunny of a day and your camera was very, very sensitive to light, and this is maybe how the picture would have turned out. You might have some images where like it was way too dark at night and you tried to capture the image too quickly. And of course, people will be like, I use my flash, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about why we're not going to use our flash on our phones. But anyhow, so that's how this would work. The other thing to always remember is you kind of have to make an image a little brighter than you would think, because on the screen you're working with pictures that are illuminated from the screen, and when we go to print them, they're going to print a little bit darker than the way they appear on the screen. So you can use the slider bar to adjust that. Of course, we can hit the reset. These little sliders, I mean, you could play with them. They kind of maybe just do some crazy things, and that's kind of interesting actually, but we're not going to look at that. There are some presets, and this is what I want to talk about: the -1, the -2, the +1, the +2. You might see something like that on your camera. So if your camera is set at whatever default settings, auto, but if you switch it to manual and you see the -1, okay, what that's going to do is it's going to make it a little darker. Okay, what if we, just made it a little bit less sensitive to light? What if we made it even more sensitive to light? It's going to be a little darker. Now, if we made it more sensitive, we're going to add. So here's more sensitive, here's even more sensitive to light. So when you're adding exposure, you're telling the camera, hey, make this brighter. Okay, let more light in, so on and so forth. So that's a little bit with exposure. Just going to kind of close this. And, if you lose detail, you're not going to be able to get that back. So I might actually reset this and just smidge up my exposure a little bit there. Okay. The other thing I'm going to show you is this DodgeBurn thing. And I might describe it in a way that's kind of like, what are you talking about, Miss Metropolis? You're kind of crazy. But if you ever worked in a darkroom, or if you ever get the opportunity to, there's a thing you can actually do in there, which is dodge or burn. Now, think about dodge, think about dodgeball. You're trying to get away from it, right? So when you're dodging something, you're trying to, here's your dodge tool, you're trying to avoid, you're going to be lightening, okay? And if you burn, you're going to be making it darker. So that's the easier way to, think about dodging the light, or, getting burned by the light, and then dodging that. So you're probably like, you're crazy, Ms. Metropolis. Just show us what this does. Okay, since you're going to be kind of painting a little bit with your dodge and burn tool, you really have to copy the layer you're going to work on. So right here I have my background, which is where I'm going to do this painting on. You're not going to really be able to do it on these image adjustment option layers. Okay, so easiest way to duplicate this is you can right click. Remember, that would be you're holding down your control and clicking with the mouse so that you can pull up duplicate layer. Okay, and then you just hit OK. Another way to copy it, you should be able to hit Command J on your keypad. That also copies it. Now I have two copies of it. I'm going to actually just get rid of one. So let's not get over crazy here. Okay, so the reason that we're doing this is if I want to make any changes to it, it's going to destruct my original image. So anything that I'm burning or dodging, you want to do it on the copy because you can always move, go back to your original. Okay. The other thing you should always have open, which I don't, I apologize, is your history. So go up to Window and choose History. Okay, so you can see what we're doing here. So again, if you want to create a lighter area, you're going to use this dodge tool. Okay, getting away from the light. We don't want to get burned, so let's dodge it. So if I want to lighten up some of these areas, and remember I'm working right on my background, so I'm clicked on that, I'm selected there, I can lighten it. Now you're not going to maybe see if this is not like a very dramatic change, and you want to be very careful because this can start to look really fake. Now my exposure here is 50%, and I'm messing with my midtones. So I can go ahead and change it to my highlights, and I can change my exposure so that I can actually make it a little bit more. And now you actually see the change a little bit more. Let's turn it up. Let's turn it up crazy here. Okay. Whoa. Okay, now it's going to start messing with the pixels here. You'll see it's kind of distorting them a little bit. Okay, but I just wanted you to be able to see what it does. Okay, I wouldn't recommend going this crazy because now it just looks whacked out. It's really strange. So the dodge basically, or the burn, I'm sorry, does the opposite. Okay, now it's not going to be an exact science, so it's not like you can just go back and burn right over it and fix it, which is why I have you have your history so you can go back a few times. Okay, or remember we're doing this on a copied layer. So if I hide this, bam, back to normal. Show it, there we go. Now we can mess around. The other thing you can do is you can change your brush size. Look at how big this is. If I want to just get in here for these little detailed areas, which, hello, Mrs. Metropolis, why don't you just zoom in so you can show us a little better? So I can hit Control Plus with my keypad and scroll with my mouse, zoom in a little bit better. Sorry. So you can change your brush size up here. I like to change my brush size visually. I don't like to deal with all these numbers. I'm an art teacher, not a math teacher. So what I would basically do is on your keypad, if you locate the letter P, there are these bracket keys to the right of it. So if you choose the left bracket and click it, it will actually make the brush size smaller. And this goes for a lot of things in Photoshop. Anytime you have a brush size, you can use your bracket key. Go left, make it smaller, go right, make it bigger. I just like it because, I can work with my left hand doing that, and I can work with my right hand with the mouse. So anything shortcut is just super helpful. So here I'm just kind of trying to darken these lines a little bit just to kind of show you what it does. Again, I wouldn't recommend doing this. This would be more like, a highlight in an eye that you want to like just bring out a little bit, a shadow that looks a little funky that you want to just darken in a little area, go with it. But as you can see, and I'll zoom in a little bit more, okay, it gets this little odd painterly vibe that, photographers don't really want, because if you go over it and go over it again, it'll just keep darkening. It'll kind of look all smudgy. But it's a little something to play with, if there's just a little area that you want to kind of mess with. Now, as you see that when I'm burning this, it's kind of bringing back some of those details, so that's kind of nice. So maybe you'll use it for that. So again, sorry this was a little long, a little long, but I wanted you to be able to see some of these options, some of these things that you do. Now again, if I save this as a JPEG, it's going to flatten everything. All these changes that I did are going to stay. So if you want to be able to go back and re-edit this and change it, remember, save as a PSD, and then, when you get done with it, save it as a JPEG and turn in your JPEG to me. All right, good luck dodging and burning.